Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome back to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lara, and today I want to talk to you about how you cannot pour. Listen, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And I know a lot of people, men and women, who do this all the time. I had a previous episode on, burnout culture, and I want to do this as an extension of that episode from the past. So oftentimes, I hear the stories of men and women, especially women, and how, busy they are. And we glamorize like the busyness of it. But it is a serious, serious problem. When you're young, when you're 20 and 30 years old, it's easy to pour out of an empty cup. But our body, as it gets older and it starts to slow down and there's wear and tear, just like a vehicle does, right? Our bodies will start to have a more difficult time recovering from illness, a more difficult time recovering from a night of not sleeping, even just a difficult time recovering from going out on a Saturday night, right? And, women's bodies are different in the sense of because of how our hormones work. And so men's testosterone gives them this ability to have strength that we physically don't have. Regardless of what people think, women are strong. Yes, we are. But because of the hormone fluctuation, especially as women enter perimenopause, you will see this struggle. They're on the struggle bus and they're still going 200 miles an hour. And so I hear all the complaints left and right, of how women are feeling. And right now, it's not just women in their 40s. It's even women in their 30s that are complaining of this. And I'm going to take it even a step further. I test young people in their 20s and even as teenagers, and I'm seeing hormone levels the equivalent of someone who is going through menopause. Low progesterone, low estrogen, low cortisol, low DHEA, all of it. And so young people are usually experiencing these low hormones because they're not eating enough and they're not sleeping well and they have tons of stress, period. That's consistently the story in young people. Now, in women in my age, I'm in my 40s, so women in my age group, I feel sometimes bad listening to them, and then they turn to me and ask me, what about you? And I don't have any of those symptoms. I'm not claiming that I'm perfect, but I do eat well. I make sure I get my protein intake, every day. You're going to always hear me, eat your protein. Just eat the protein. Start your morning with protein. Your lunch, make sure there's enough protein, and then in your dinner time. And on average, the rule is 1 gram of protein per pound to maintain. Now it depends. If you're really overweight, you might, if you're like 300 pounds, you're not going to eat 300 grams of protein. But it's safe to say between 120 and 150 grams of protein. I'm not giving medical advice, by the way. I don't know your medical condition, so everyone's specific, but on average, that's what we should be aiming for. And I know for a fact that many people are not. They're not even getting to 60 grams of protein. So that is going to make you feel fatigued. So when women my age in their 40s, or like I said, even mid to late 30s, are experiencing hot flashes, a lot of anxiety and panic. They have no energy. They have low sex drive. They can't fall asleep at night. Their memory concentration is really bad. Their focus is bad. And that's just some of it. There's a lot of other symptoms that go along with it. Bone pain. There could be neurogenic pain, which is due to low estrogen. And so they can have sensitivity to their scalp. They can have hair falling out, weight gain, right? They're gaining weight, and it's not because they're eating bad. They're just having, they're gaining weight easy, or they're having a hard time losing the weight. So you can't pour out of an empty cup. You've been pouring out of an empty cup all your life. Now here you are in your 40s, and you're wondering why you're struggling. And I tell women all the time, if you have daughters, you want to teach your daughters to not neglect their physical body and to not glamorize this busy lifestyle. It's okay to say no, and it's okay to say no to your kids, right? So I want to talk about, what is self-neglect? Everyone may look at this a little bit different, but if you're ignoring your own needs, in favor of others, that is self-neglect. And women do this all the time. If you're skipping, rest, you're skipping your ability to go to sleep earlier, you're skipping meals, or even giving yourself a mental break, this is a form of self-neglect. If you're constantly people-pleasing, at your own expense, this is self-neglect. We have to take into consideration what can we afford to do in terms of our time and energy, and what is it that we cannot. And so sometimes it's just saying no to certain things that are not for you to carry. And some examples of these are, there are parents who never ask for help. And I get it that there are some situations where, in a case of a single parent, single mother, they might not have many family members to help and support during that time. So that's understandable. But sometimes, there's work professionals that they'll work extended hours a week. Instead of their 40 or 50 hours, they're working 70 hours or more because they want to meet or exceed their expectations of their work. So I have men who, have their own businesses, and they say they work 7 days a week. And so that's not okay. You have to make time for yourself. You have to make time for your family too, and to do things that you enjoy doing. This is another thing that I also see is people who are they have a good heart. They want to help, but they just make themselves emotionally available for everyone. And that can be very, very draining. So, it's okay to tell people, set boundaries, and to not be the one who's always being emotionally dumped on. That can be a lot to do. So some of the costs, what does it cost people when they are burnt out? Because you might not feel it till you're in your 40s or 50s, but I definitely see it now, starting to mid 30s into the 40s, where people are burnt out already. And some of the emotional costs that will result in is you becoming resentful and realizing who's been there for me, right? I've helped everyone. I'm not feeling well. Who's been there for me? No one's paying attention to me. No one's considering me. So you can become resentful. This can also lead to feeling depressed, having depression or anxiety. And of course, the burnout itself. And this burnout is different. It's not just like being a little tired. Burnout leads to you losing interest in the things that you once enjoyed doing, or feeling like you're really pushing yourself to do the things that are a priority for your life and even for your children, for your loved ones. Like you just feel like you are just pushing through. And of course, the physical costs that are associated with pouring out of that empty cup is going to be that chronic fatigue, illness, the weight gain. Everybody gets upset when they gain weight because they'll tell me, I'm not eating more, I'm eating healthy, I'm working out, but I'm gaining a lot of weight. And so that can be very discouraging as we get older and we see this belly weight, right, just hanging out, not wanting to go anywhere. Insomnia is something that I see, people who are constantly pouring out of that empty cup. They will have a hard time falling asleep, and that's just contributing to more fatigue and imbalance. Over time, what I start to see when people, long periods of time, like I said, you usually don't see it when you're young, you usually start seeing it in your 40s, is this loss of identity. Like, who am I? What am I doing this for? Especially when children grow up, they're adults and they move out, and now it's just you and your partner, your spouse, and you feel like, what have I done with my life? Like, who am I? You feel like you've had a loss of identity because you've been sharing yourself to everyone, spreading yourself thin, that what have you given to yourself, in that time? So you can feel invisible. You can feel, like I said earlier, who's there for me? I'm there for everyone, but who's there for me? Who's listening to me? And sometimes it could just be that, being heard, right? And of course, the relationship things that come with that is you've most likely allowed some broken boundaries that leads to resent and then leads to conflict. Because as those hormones come down in women who are in perimenopause stage, they become less resilient to intolerant to things that they were able to tolerate before. Because progesterone is a hormone that helps us as women to be calm, cool, and collective. And when it's not there, we're not cool and calm. We don't have the tolerance. Women tend to speak up more, and sometimes it doesn't come across so nice. So, it's those hormones. So, when you neglect yourself long enough, the people around you start to believe that's just who you are. And always, 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 they never, they believe like this is who you are, and but that's not a sustainable life, right? And it's not love to yourself for you to not take into account your own needs, right? There's your own physical, mental, emotional needs that you need to give to yourself as well. And, when we are helpers, as a doctor, I have to make myself a priority, because if I am not feeling well, I cannot pour into my patients. I won't want to, regardless of how much I love what I like to do, right? And so we have to practice what we teach. So why do we do this? Why do we do this? This is a conversation that I have with women from all ages. Why do we do this? That we consistently keep going. And I even heard an interview of someone famous the other day, and she's like, well, I saw my mother do it, and I saw my grandmother do it, and they had it worse. Who am I to complain? I just got to keep pushing through. And I'm like, see, that's exactly the toxic mindset that we have. Because oftentimes we have this internalized belief that if I take time to rest, I'm lazy. And if I keep moving and doing all these things, that I'm accomplished, that I'm achieving something, right? That I am energetic, that I am, hardworking. And yeah, you could be hardworking, but you're also hardworking. Your body's working hard to keep up with all the demands. So rest is not lazy. And I used to have that mindset when I was in my 20s. I'm like, we don't have time to rest. I have too much to do. We have to keep doing things, right? So the mindset of rest is lazy, we need to break that mindset. Some people have deeper wounds, and sometimes they feel they have to earn people's love. They feel they have to earn their attention because they didn't get that when they were children, most likely. Not all the time. But people who give, that I've said it before in other episodes where I talk about, like, that is a sign of a deeper wound. If you cannot say no and you're doing it to be accepted, to be loved, you're giving for the wrong reasons, right? And so you don't have to give excessively to anyone to earn love. People should love you just because of who you are. And the other thing too, and I struggle with this one, if I stop, everything is going to fall apart. If I don't do this, who else is going to do it, right? And we have to carve out time for times to rest. That's what we have to do in our culture now. We have to carve out that time to rest. and carve out time to work and so forth. But that's also a fear that you're the one that has to carry all the responsibility. And so maybe you need to delegate. Maybe you need to delegate some things in your household or in your work environments, right? Or if you're volunteering in an organization, like you need to learn to delegate. That's something I have learned to do because I am not good at delegating. And then sometimes that comes into being a trust issue. So these are sometimes mindsets, right? Beliefs that we have. There's other things too, that's been conditioned into us in our life. So any childhood patterns can lead us to pouring out of this empty cup. And of course, cultural and gender expectations, like I said earlier, when this woman that was being interviewed, there's this expectation that women need to do it all. Everything in the house, everything with your children. If you're working, of course, then you're responsible for all of that. And there's cultural things that we get passed on, I'll tell you, some of the most hardworking people, and I say this as if I am not part of the group, but I am, is Mexican culture. I have seen these men work so hard, long hours, every day. And when I do their tests, when I do their hormone tests and cortisol, and I check all of that, I look at them and I'm like, how can you even get up at 2 and 3 in the morning and work in a physically demanding job with these level of hormones? And I'll look at them in their eyes when I say this, and sometimes their wives are there with them, and I'm like, how are you functioning? Like someone with these lab values shouldn't even be able to get out of bed, much less work. And they're like, well, I do feel a little tired, It's like they don't even acknowledge the fatigue. And, there's almost like this moment of, well, hold on, let's sit with this. Like, how are you feeling throughout your day? And as men start to talk about how they feel, there are the signs of fatigue there, but the mindset is so resilient. It's like it has to get done. And so sometimes our culture, right, can push this idea of, work hard, strong work ethic is something that we take pride in, which, yeah, but it's a good thing, but too much of it is a bad thing. We need to find time to stop and take a break. So I tell these men all the time, you're going to have to take at least one day off. Pick. It has to be Saturday or Sunday, but you got to pick a day that your family is home and you guys can do something, even if you're resting or something. And so it's a lot of the mindset that believes that if they don't work, they're not going to make money to pay for stuff, and they're doing well. So it's just a limited belief that they carry, right? So we're going to talk about how do we stop pouring from an empty cup. Oh man, this is the hard part, because we oftentimes think that self-care is like this luxury, right? And you don't have to go spend a lot of money for self-care. And that's not the point of this. But self-care, it's not negotiable. It's a must. And it could be as simple as having a day off to do nothing. In the Bible, God rested on the Sabbath day. And so clearly we deserve to at least have one day off as well. But a big thing that I will say in terms of how to start working and allowing yourself for some self-care, setting those boundaries. And sometimes you have to set the boundary with yourself. Like, tell yourself, I'm not going to say yes to everything. Before I agree to something, I'm going to give myself the time and space distant from that situation or person before I respond and say yes. Let me think about it. How is this impacting my schedule that's already busy? How is this going to impact me physically, mentally, emotionally, my energy? How is this going to impact me? Hey, look, I say no all the time. If I think it's going to rob me of my peace and my energy, I'm just going to say no. I don't want to. I don't want to go without having to explain why. Creating a space in your home where you can allow time for silence. And even physical exercise for some of y'all is self-care. it is for me. If I don't get moving, I start to feel depressed. And so getting moving, helps my mental health a lot, as and many other people as well. And of course, just ask for help. Ask for help. Get the kids to do stuff around the house. I know sometimes we feel like, you know what? Never mind. I'll just do it myself. They're taking too long. That's like every woman, might feel that way. But, women have a hard time peeling themselves away from family. And so if you do it once in a while, it's not a bad idea at all. It's a good thing for you. So I want to hear your stories of where you are at in your life. What has led you to pouring out of an empty cup. I know for a lot of us, it is just overcommitting to things. We're overly ambitious. I know that's one of my problems. I love to do a lot of different things, and I can get myself into many situations because I'm excited and passionate in the moment I say yes. So I have a rule of giving myself at least 72 hours, 3 days, okay, of thinking about something, especially something that involves me committing my time and energy, to really think about it before I say yes to that. The other thing, too, that I have that's really helped me is being upfront with people when they present an idea or are asking for help or something. It depends. There's a lot of variables to these situations. But when something presents itself to me, I let them know up front, like, hey, I just want you to know I'll listen to what you have to share. So say if a salesperson comes to my office and it sounds like they have a good device or something that I can bring into my practice, I'll tell them that I'm willing to listen to their offer, but that I'm not going to make a decision on the spot today, because I am the kind of person that I need time to really sit with it, think through it, pray on it, to see if this is something that's best for me and my practice, right? And they already know up front, I set the expectation that I'm not making a decision today, that I'm going to be honest with them. I'm going to be respectful to them of their time and their work. But if at the end, if my answer is a no, it's a no. And so I find that I get to respect and honor that person, because being a salesperson is difficult, right? They're going into people's offices, so I don't want them to feel leaving bad about themselves, about my interaction with them. And what I've actually seen is the contrary. They leave feeling respected. They feel like this is a friendly conversation. They get to put their guard down and be themselves, share their product, their service, whatever they have to offer. And then I'll tell them, this is great, but it's not my demographics. It's not for my clinic. It's not for my patients. My focus is here. So I speak in truth and I speak openly about it. But if you go into situations that way, it will help you big time. So if someone says, hey, we're looking for someone to volunteer for this at the church or for this at this, community thing, great, that sounds great. Let me think about that, because I already have a lot of commitments on my plate. And I want to make sure that it's a good fit for me, that fits my lifestyle. And I also want to be able to show up enjoying this and being part of that. So let me think about it. Let me pray about it to see if this if it's going to be a good fit. You don't have to say yes to everything. And that way you're being upfront with them and saying, I need some time to think about it. And, we live in a culture right now that marketing is very pushy. For a limited time, if you, in the next 10 hours, if you sign up for this, you get this free, 90-day subscription to whatever, and you get all these free things only if you sign up right now in the next 10 hours. We have limited spots, right? We've all heard those commercials or on social media. And I'll tell you, I cannot stand that. I cannot stand that pressure. So anytime anyone brings ideas like that to my practice for my clinic, it's a no, because I don't like to be approached that way. And so why would I approach other people in that manner? Absolutely not. It's better to come in with open hands and an open heart, an open mind, and speak from where you're at and just say, unfortunately, I cannot commit to that. Sometimes it is a straightforward no. I get people to come into my office, for example, and ask salespeople, and are you offering, GLP-1 medications like semaglutide? And I said, no, it's a no for me. That's my personal preference as a doctor. I will not put people on those medications for weight loss. I will not. If you want to lose weight, we're going to do it the right way, the healthy way, the sustainable way. I will not put someone on a medication that I feel can have negative side effects to them. And then I'm going to feel like I'm responsible for that. So that, to me, I know it's a flat out no. Be mindful of where you are also volunteering yourself to things that you are overcommitting. And sometimes I have patients ask themselves, like, sit and think about, why do I overcommit? Why do I feel a need to constantly, say yes and volunteer and do all these things at the expense of my well-being, right? So sometimes saying yes even to the good things is not necessarily a good thing for you. The hope of this episode is for me to get women to really open their eyes a little bit more about where they're committing their time and their energy, because we're not going to be young forever. And, when you get to that point of perimenopause, that's now when you're interested in trying to learn how to take care of yourself. Now what can you take? What can you do to help you? And I'm going to tell you, it's very difficult. We can minimize the symptoms of perimenopause or menopause in women with whether it's hormone replacement therapy or natural supplements and herbs. But it's not going to be 100%. You're not going to be 100%. You're just not. Because you have racked up years, 20 plus years of consistent physical, mental, emotional abuse towards yourself because you allowed it. So it's good that we can minimize a lot of these symptoms, even if you just have a lingering 10 or 5% of symptoms that are lingering after treatment. But really the best thing is to teach our young, women to take care of their bodies, because if they don't do it, it will add up and they will be pouring out of an empty cup. And eventually that leads to, other diseases, other conditions like cancers and autoimmune and other conditions. So, hey, if you have any questions on how to help you get out of that rut, how to help you get out of that pouring out of an empty cup and start filling your cup with goodness, reach out to us and see how we can help you. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. And until next time, be blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raíces, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.